conditions I've ever had at Copper, because I'm a big snowboarder guy. I'm going to talk skiing today, but it's pretty good. They've had some really good power in the last week to 10 days. Temperatures haven't really cooperated as much as you'd like it to, but I don't think it matters if you're really truly dedicated to playing in the powder and enjoying the competitions that we're going to talk to you about today. But we're here today with Scott Rawls. We'll talk a little bit more about Scott and his background, but I'm going to ask him a question about this moniker he's had for years, which goes back, I think, into the 70s, the Banana Man. Where did that come from? And has it really stuck with him? And where does he take it from there? And what do you do after you're known as the Banana Man? What's the next vista for you? And we'll dovetail that remark and those answers to those questions into kids, and kids competing, and kids trying to be their best on snow in conditions that aren't the same kind of conditions for other athletes in other sports. I think they've got an interesting challenge. For me, it's a joy to be here, but you know, every week we start off with a quote to get our week going, and that's called our mindset moment. Well, this week, based on the things that have been going on in our communities and around our country, and in some cases, I think around the world, the quote for this week for the mindset moment was, "The opposite for courage is not cowardice. It is conformity. Even a dead fish can go with the flow." So says American James Hightower. Now, I picked James Hightower because in Texas is where he's from. He's a pretty stout Republican. But you know what? Right is right. It doesn't matter about party. It doesn't matter about where you're raised or what community you're in. It matters about what you do and is it the right thing to do. And that's the focus of the mindset moment for this week, which kind of pushes into this week's conversations about things. We're going to talk about not so much the U.S. ski team, but the fact that the U.S. ski team trains at Copper Mountain. And I think they have a 98-year lease now, because it was 99 when they signed it. But they train here at Copper Mountain. And that attitude, that mindset that's brought to this mountain and the communities around here, I think has a lot to do with the level of competition and execution that these young kids get a chance to see and get a chance to exemplify. You know, you copy kind of sometimes the great things you see. So when you see good examples like that, you create habits. We are not what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act. It's a habit. And I think that's another thing that we want to talk about today is what is it that kids on snow are getting in the form of facilities, skills, and stuff. I mean, for a lot of years, and our guest today, Scott Rawls, can talk about this because he's a child of the 70s snow kid, getting out there and just, you know, thrashing around on the powder. And it's grown so much and gone so far in its level of excellence. But one of the things that's interesting about that is the environment that they're in. For those of you who are just listening to us, I've got a picture up on the screen now at the top of the course at a Rocky Mountain freestyle mogul event in Winter Park. No, this one was at Steamboat. And you know, it's just like any gathering. You've got, well, not as much now because of COVID, but moms and dads gathering at the top, you know, cheering their son or daughter on, getting them prepared, and addressing the needs of a plan and preparing for what they're about to do on the snow. Well, part of that planning and preparation process is what's your goal? What's your end in mind? Where are you going with this? So if you begin with the end in mind, you're going to come back hopefully from that and begin to create those skill steps and that essence in your mind about what is it that I need to really do when I get off a top air and I hit that middle section. What am I going to look for when I'm preparing for my turns? But as I say that, before we got on air this morning in talking to Scott, there's that plan that fits you, that the athlete takes ownership of that plan and that they created it, number one. Because once they hit the snow, the coach isn't in their pocket. He might be in their mind with a little voice, but it's your plan, and it's got to fit you and what you're capable of doing. Because at the end, when you finish, hopefully you do finish, no straight lining here, let's finish, there are no excuses, and there are no regrets. And we're going to talk a lot about all of those pieces as we talk to Scott Rawls, and I think that's exactly where I want to continue with our conversation with Scott. Is in the introduction, Scott is a coach. He's been in the biz and around the biz for 40 plus years. It's really interesting to me how, gosh, a passion for anything for 40 years is extraordinary. But something when you go outside and it's cold, that's even more extraordinary. So welcome, Scott Rawls, to 360 Performance on a Friday at KUHS Denver. Thank you so much for being here.
No, very, very excited to be here. And going back to what you were just saying, Lowell, I was lucky enough for, I started skiing with my family. I'm originally from Montana. My mother and father were helped actually build a couple ski areas up there. I'm from a town called Libby, Montana, far northwest Montana, and we learned to ski at a place called Turner Mountain, and it was really a family thing at that point. My mom and dad really instilled a great enthusiasm for the sport of skiing, and I'm lucky enough to have been able to be in the sport for at least professionally. I moved to Colorado in 1979 from Washington State. But I was very, very fortunate to be able to ski with my brothers, and I have two brothers, Kirk and Mike, and it was the thing we did. We were pretty much weekend warriors. We load up the station wagon on Saturday morning and try to be as close to the parking lift as we could. We would ski from when it opened until it closed.
Well, Scott, one of the things I want people to know is that you're not just one of these lucky guys that dropped into skiing and you succeeded in a moment in history. I mean, you were a van driver for a shuttle skiers back and forth to what they needed to do. I mean, you were passionate from get-go. I mean, maybe mom and dad got you out of the house just to get you out of their way, and snow is a convenient outlet. But I mean, you progress. Kids need to know that passion is defined by how you participate, and you participated right from the beginning in just those, not menial. I'm not going to downplay it, but it was whatever was there to get it done, so you could stay close to the hill and participate in what has been a wonderful sport and career for you.
Yeah, no, it absolutely has, and like I said, I've been fortunate to when I did move to Colorado, things were starting. Essentially, freestyle skiing became pretty big in the mid '70s. People were watching my world sports shows. That was really my introduction to the sport. Was seeing some of the great skiers that came out of that era: Jack Taylor, John Clendon, Scott Brooksbank, Anya Fuller, the Post Sisters. Like there's those skiers were stars at that point during the development of freestyle. And then a few things happened with the sport in terms of injuries and everything, and then it became a fifth sport in the early '80s. And that's when things really started to kind of change. There was more training, there was more concern for safety of competitors, everything else. And I've been really lucky to be able to watch the sport progress from what it was back then, was basically you fence off a mogul field, everybody would kind of go for it. It was spontaneous air, everything else, to where now there's built jumps, manufactured courses, everything else, year-round training. Because I mean, all the athletes now, they're when I started, it was you didn't go upside down in the moguls. That was like that was everybody's worst.
Well, by accident maybe, but not on purpose.
Yeah, like an accident maybe. At that point, at least in the mogul side of it, I mean, people were going upside down in aerials, but there were a lot of rules and regulations that got put in for the good of the sport to keep it safe, so people could keep progressing and keep moving along. And for me to be able to have been around it from that era to now, where you're seeing athletes on double fulls, off axis 1440s, like stuff that people would never even imagine doing before, is reality now. But it's all come to because there is year-round training. There are progressions. The coaches are better. The sports psychology is better.
Yeah.
The physical training is improved. Where all the pieces are in place basically to be successful with what you're doing. If you commit essentially a especially at the very elite levels, you're basically life.
Well, and with that being said, Scott, we got to mention Team Summit and groups like Team Summit, which bring those youngsters up. You know, they have a place for moms and dads to have their kids perform and get good coaching. You were mentioning off air about the 12 and unders you've dealt with. You're also, because of your experience, I mean, you've got all the ages, all the expertise you could be talking to, but it sounds like your passion goes beyond just staying with the elite. You're nurturing and guiding those youngsters up. What are some of the biggest challenges you've had as a coach, regardless of age, in maintaining the passion and commitment of kids to the sport of freestyle?
Well, you know, it was really interesting because really about in 1999, I was coaching for Team Breckenridge. At that point, there were some organizational changes that were being made, and so all the freestyle motor scheme at that point was going to become Team Summit.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, I actually hired Chris Carson as one of my assistant coaches, and Chris has been with that program since then,
yeah,
and has developed that program and the whole thing. And essentially, I worked 5 days with Chris before I got hired to be assistant coach with the U.S. ski team.
That's
so
interesting.
So Chris he's really done a great job with running with this program, developing this program into what it is now. Because now I believe they have 20 kids, full-time academy kids, skiing all the time. I think they have like probably 50 kids in their 14 and under programs. And to me, it's really I was on the road coaching World Cup, coaching Olympics, and all that for about basically 20 years. And for me, it's been really, really refreshing to go back and work with the younger kids. There's a certain amount of innocence and a certain amount of enthusiasm
less inhibition
that you might not get with somebody who I'm not going to call World Cup skiers hated, but after a while, it's a different situation and everything. But really, for me, be able to be out on the hill, to try to make a difference in somebody skiing in their life, that's really why I do this. Why I still love doing it. To just see the enthusiasm of the kids, the parents, the coaches, all the people that are involved with we have the Rocky Mountain Divisional Championships here this weekend in Copper, and to see all the enthusiasm, to see all the work and everything that goes into this is very inspiring to me to this day.
Yeah.
Even though I've been in the industry a really long time.
You know, you mentioned a couple of components there: the moms and dads, the volunteers, the quality of that, and its progression to the level of quality it's at now. That's a universal common thing in any sport I've ever dealt with as a sports psychologist, is that there's moms and dads are transporting the kids, moms and dads are packing the lunches, moms and dads are, working sidelines, announcing, setting up an event. The extraordinary thing for me that I really commend everybody that participates in the winter sport area is the fact that it's winter and it's outside. You don't have a lot of other sports that have those challenges. It's not just the weather; it's elevation, it's contour. I mean, we're talking about a degree of pitch here just for me to go and when COVID kind of limits it a little bit, but I got a chance to be next to the course yesterday and watch some of the competitors, but there were 3 of us along the side, and to stand there, first take my board off, then stand there and balance myself. I think I'm giving away my age a little bit, but that's another whole other question. But to be in those conditions is what my point is that there's not any other sport that has that challenge for the kids to deal with. And the athletes, I'm sure you see it too, it's just second nature. They get up at the crack of dawn, they go out in the cold, they're getting ready, and I mean, you have the kids that kind of go back and forth with it, but that's a great test of commitment and passion. You don't have a lot of question marks. If they show up, they're there to do what they need to do.
No, they absolutely do, and especially this year, with having to deal with COVID, and the parents have really stepped up even more because they're having to they're having to drive their kids everywhere. It used to be that teams could house together at the
Yeah.
hotel. And there's been a lot more responsibility that have been put on parents this year, and the administrative staff and the coaches at Team Summit. And everybody should really be commended for the fact that they've been able to pull off events and to do the stuff that has gone on this year.
Yeah, having a season is a big deal.
Having a season is a huge deal this year, and I think, and I really think that, like, skiing, being outside, I think that it's been a really great outlet for everybody who, some kids haven't been able to go to school, some kids are, doing school online and everything, haven't been able to see their friends and everything else. And I think it's been a great outlet to be able for people to be outside. I wouldn't say it's completely normal yet, but but being out on the mountain and being out in the fresh air, being out in the elements I think it's been very refreshing to be able to do that.
So let's expand the elements and the environment beyond copper. We've got 2 Olympics, one coming after each other. The winter one is the one we're going to focus on. Let's get your opinion on, do you think it's going to happen? I mean, they're hopeful, right?
No, they're very hopeful. My last stint on the World Cup was I was the head coach for the Chinese national team from 2014 to 18. And I was an assistant coach last year. And I know that for the Winter Olympics in Beijing, they'll put every single effort.
Yeah.
They'll put on a great games. There's no doubt about that. But even this year, like all of their national snow sports teams, they did not travel. They basically stayed in country and have been training and doing that whole side of it. So I think that they'll have a very good plan for people coming to China in terms of what they're going to be doing with quarantine, with testing, with vaccine, whatever it might be in terms of before we get there. And I think probably the biggest changes, and I don't know all the details of what's going to go on, but obviously there's probably going to be some big changes in terms of spectators being able to come to events.
Yeah.
Everything else, and it's only a year out. So, and I think that they're probably going to be looking very closely at what goes on in Tokyo this summer to see some of the things that are going to get implemented at that Olympics. Because I think it's probably more questionable about what's going to go on there than probably what's going to go on in Beijing.
Yeah, and what I was thinking about as you were talking there is one of my favorite movies is Sandlot. It's about a bunch of boys who play baseball in the Sandlot, right. And one of their teammates goes on to play for the Dodgers when he was older. But I just get this feeling that there's going to be a lot of Sandlot-like competition, because it's not that it's disjointed or in the Sandlot, but because of the adapting we've had to make, there's not going to be stands. Yeah, there may be some music, like there's music, and there's an announcer telling who's going to come first or who's going to come next, and they count them down, and all those kind of things are going to be there. But the energy of the crowd, as much as they might try to technologically replicate that, it's not going to be there. So I'm wondering, and then your point about the training prior to not being able to travel and train and gather in the way they're going to still put teams out. So I'm just kind of, not that I'm trying to diminish the quality of the competition. I think there's going to be huge quality, because there are some countries that have been enabled to do what they need to do. I've been watching the Olympic winter sports trials on different networks, the Olympic Channel in particular. It seems that the bobsledders are having a better advantage. Because they have their own little bubble they can just keep doing. So I think you're going to see some great Olympic competition, but I also like the fact that there's that intangible variable of inconsistency, that Sandlot mindset kind of brings to who's going to bring out their intangibles and really deliver something on the speed skating rink, or who's going to really drive it in the freestyle mogul. And just come out of the crowd because somebody who is a great elite athlete didn't have the training time they could have and isn't delivering at their best.
Right, and that's really going to be, particularly coming into Beijing this time because the World Championships were scheduled. Secret Garden is the the venue where the freestyle skiing and snowboarding events will be, and the World Championships were supposed to be there this February, and that was going to be because normally leading into an Olympic Games there'd be a test World Cup event, or sort of a rarity that somebody would host World Championships and then takes them back-to-back years. Normally there would be a test event before the World Championships, World Championships, and then Olympics. But this year, the way the schedule was, World Championships was going to be the test event. With that event not happening, I'm not sure because normally in leading up to an Olympic Games, most of the World Cup or most of the athletes that are going to compete at the Olympics are going to see a venue 3 times, probably three separate years, and there's a lot of planning that goes into that in terms of training of once you actually see that venue of trying to either replicate that venue at home where you're normally going to train, or going someplace else where you can find something that is close to that. And that's going to be really challenging for everybody if in fact they show up and that is going to be the first event on that hill at the Olympics, because you're not only factoring in not being able to see that, see the course, what conditions are going to be, the surrounding of it, but like what you just said, to come in sort of blindly and then all of a sudden it's the biggest event you're seeing every 4 years, to be able to compete at a very high level with that. I think that in some ways, like, being a veteran might be to your advantage, but then in other ways, not knowing anything might be your advantage.
Well, yeah, and as you and I both know, and especially for myself in the psychology side of things, it can go either way. You can't, as a coach, you can't rely on the fact that that's a seasoned athlete I'm dealing with, and they go into this venue, they haven't seen it before, they're going to have some trepidation possibly. They're going to have some hiccups, and especially if there's any kind of error or fear that's interjected in itself during the training process to get to know that course or that obstacle that's in front of you in a freestyle course or wherever it might be. So there is no guarantee.
No, there is no guarantee, and especially dealing with the Olympics, where you're having to deal with transportation issues, lodging issues, like there, the setup over there in Secret Garden is going to be actually pretty amazing, because the Olympic Village is literally a 5-minute drive from the venue.
Yeah,
and it's up just one valley. They built a high-speed train, started in operation about a year ago. It decreased it used to be a 3.5-hour, basically Secret Garden and Chongli and Changjiakou, which are the main cities near there. It was a 3.5-hour drive from the city of Beijing.
And was it that the downhill folks that were the ones that had to have that commute, weren't they? Versus
I'm not exactly. I vaguely know where the Alpine venues are, and those are closer to the city. But they put a high-speed train in from the city to basically where Secret Garden is. That reduced a 3-hour drive to a 45-minute train.
That's well, and especially with being able to transport routinely to keep the distancing and face masks and all that kind of stuff together. That's very helpful.
It's going to be for everybody to show up, because they've hosted World Cup at the resort right next to Secret Garden in Taiwu. They've hosted World Cup competitions there. They hosted more competitions already. So there's somewhat familiarity with China for everybody, but it's still as a fan, I'm excited.
Right. No, the unexpected is great entertainment.
It is going to be very unexpected over there, because ski culture is relatively new in China. It's very new in China, and they've really sort of they've committed themselves to building a lot of new ski resorts. There's a lot more people in China that are skiing now. But it's still it's really a new thing for everybody.
Yeah.
So it's probably going to be, in a lot of ways, probably the most interesting Winter Olympics that's ever happened. In a lot of ways, just because of the dealing with the COVID, dealing with how every other country's dealing with it,
Yeah.
and then seeing how they're actually going to do it.
Let me take a pause on that note, because we're going to continue to talk about Olympics and just competition in general. But I want to make note that Team Summit is a wonderful club sport, if you will. I don't know if they consider themselves in that terminology, but in my world, club sport encapsulates what they do. Where moms and dads can bring their kids to places where they can get great training and coaching, and then continue to move up the line as competition allows its access to that good competition. So Team Summit, I want to give my props to Team Summit, also to KUHS Denver. We're streaming every day to the world, actually. We're getting our messages out there, and every Friday at 11 o'clock you can listen to 360 Performance and have me share ideas with you about performance issues, about how to connect the brain and the body and make sure that when things were not anticipated, you can deal with it. You can adapt and adjust. I'm talking with Scott Rawls today. We'll talk a little bit about this. I hope I get it right. Colorado Hall of Famer in the world of skiing. Also a Olympic gold, or I shouldn't say gold, Olympic medalist coach for Olympic mogul and freestyle skiing. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. We're going to bring it back from the Olympics and bring it back to our home mountain here in Copper and talk about the progression. If I do well here at a regional championship, what does that mean for me as a up-and-coming 15, 16, 17-year-old? Where do I go next? And what do I qualify for? And how does that bring me to perhaps close to my end in the dream I have of being an Olympian? Or maybe just making the U.S. ski team, which is not a bad thing to do. So welcome, everybody. Glad to have you with us. We're about halfway through the show at this time. So Scott, talk to me a little bit about that venue kind of thing. We've got all these different mountains. Summit County's awesome. We've got all these different venues we can go to. Great training area for coaches. But if I do well here at Rocky Mountains Championship this week, the divisional championship, what should I think about as my next step?
Basically, if there's a whole series of events in the Rocky Mountain Division. Athletes compete throughout the state, basically, and basically they're accruing points to get on the national point list for the United States. If you have enough points on that point list, that will qualify you to go to the national championships.
Okay.
Which are later on in March. And if you're high enough on that point list, I'm not completely up to date on it. It used to be at one point that if you're high enough on that point list, you could actually make the top 5 or 6 on that. So basically, these athletes are looking to improve their point standing to be able to ski at a national level competition. Mm-hmm. And then if those points are high enough on that level, they also about 3 weeks ago over at Winter Park, there was an event that it's called the U.S. Selection Events, which if you have enough points to go to the U.S. Selection Events and compete there, they take basically, if you're a host country for a World Cup, you get additional starts above there's a quota for each team, which is 6 people, and if you're the host country, you get an additional 3 spots above that.
Oh.
So all of those athletes were at that selection event to try to be able to ski at the Valley World Cup, which was last week.
Yeah.
So basically, it's that event is a very high level event. It's an FIS event, so you have to have a certain amount of FIS points to be able to ski in that event.
Define FIS for my audience. They may not know.
The Federation of International Skiing.
Thank you.
So they also have a point list, and they also have a point system. You have to have a certain amount of points to be able to ski at an FIS event. You have to have a certain amount of points to be able to ski at a World Cup. It's the same as World Cup, and then to be able to ski at the Olympics, then there's another point level for that. So basically, there's a bunch of different tiers in this system, starting with the Rocky Mountain Division or USSA division.
Yep.
That is all tiered to come from basically a regional competition all the way up to qualifying for the Olympics.
So a lot of different levels,
Yes.
a fairly clear track on how and when I can participate based on points.
Right.
Now let's ask questions that moms and dads ask. When should I get sponsors for my kid?
I would say get a sponsor anytime you can.
Yeah, because it's expensive,
It's
right?
an expensive sport, and it's a huge commitment for families to be able to do that.
Yeah.
It's not only to pay for for your coaching, but travel, entry fees, equipment, all of it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a really big undertaking.
Just give people a perspective of the level of dollars at the regional level, which is Rocky Mountain freestyle is a regional level. They're talking about entry fees. It's $60, $70 range for entry fee.
Yeah.
Well, you would say, oh, that doesn't sound expensive. That's just to get in.
Right.
And then it's the accoutrement around that. The skis, the gloves, the pants, the goggles, and making sure it's all in good working order, because we're not talking about just a casual, nuance of a pair of shorts and a jersey.
Right.
This is stuff that gets beaten up.
Right.
And if you, God forbid, but if you fall or the equipment hits the ground, there could be breakage.
No.
And then there's replacement costs. So
equipment breaks, and especially by the time that's just the equipment side.
Yeah.
But then to have to travel, hotel, just all of it.
So, and I have to bring this in because on the attitudinal side, there's a little bit of, it's that snobbery beast. We start talking about sponsors, because I've heard kids that are 14, 15 years old, I have a sponsor. And they're like lording this over their fellow club members. And I go, no, stop that. You got some gloves. They gave you some gloves. That doesn't pay the bills that mom and dad have to pay. And so typically, Scott, when is it that on that point scale and those tiers, when is it really legit that the sponsors start really presenting themselves?
Well, probably if you're on the higher end of say you're a higher end regional skier, probably at that point maybe getting some help from the hard goods industry.
Yeah, that's the skis, the boots, the gloves, that kind of stuff.
And then by the time, even if you make the U.S. ski team, you're still not getting financial support on the lower level of the U.S. ski team, and probably you're not actually getting real financial support until you're say an elite level World Cup skier.
Yeah, so that means your FIS points are up there too, not just the regional points. You've got FIS points are clicking in pretty good as well.
Exactly. So I mean, it's a tough road to hoe.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. I think that particularly in freestyle moto skiing, other than an elite few, you're not in this for make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. Like somebody like Michael Kingsbury, who's been Olympic champion, been I think he's 9-time World Cup champion, whatever. He's probably doing all right. But for the most part, the struggle is real.
So what's the real career? And when I say career, I'm saying it in a limited sense. I'm not talking about the career that you mentioned with Kingsbury. I'm talking about the kid that gets to just before college and they say, okay, I'm done. But they have this set of experiences. What is it that you've seen, that experience that the skier has gotten from the sport? Where does it take them? Where does it rise up again in their lifetime going forward as they move away from the sport? What are the benefits they're seeing?
Well, I think really the benefits from going through the whole ski experience can be applied to anything, whether it's school, whether it's business, whether it's just your personal life. Because the ski community is an amazing. There's so many great people out here, and I think that for probably 95% of the kids that are coming out of this, just the experiences, the new people that you've met, being able to travel to different mountains, to be able to do the sport you love.
Yeah.
I mean that really is the bottom line of it. And I think that people, like when they're actually in it, they're kind of like, well, this this is what it is, this is hard, this is it. But I think once they step away, everybody looks back at that portion of their life and goes, wow, that was the greatest time of my life, because I was out ripping on the mountain with my friends. We had such a good time. I was out skiing with my family. We were traveling around.
Yeah.
We were doing a lot of things. And I think that those life experiences those are really things that you can get out of skiing. And for me, I've been around the sport a long time, but those are the memories that really have stuck with me, and that I try to pass along to any athletes that I'm coaching, because it's an amazing life to be able to be involved with skiing on any level, and particularly with these kids that are coming into Team Summit in a program like this. It's I can't really put a price on it, because it's like you're going to have lifelong friendships with people you meet here, whether it's coaches, whether it's other athletes, whether it's other athletes from other programs, depending on where you get to travel and everything. You know, a lot of these kids get to go to camps.
Yeah.
In South America.
Well, here's something you and I talked off air about the NORAM that was over at Deer Valley. That is as you said, one of if not the toughest freestyle mogul courses in the world.
Yeah.
And here we have 15, 16, 17-year-olds, girls and boys, going over there and being able to compete on that course. You know, obviously if they got in the select and they got to be able to qualify for the NORAM, but that's right here. That's right here in this country. So I have a question based on that. Copper Mountain is the training home for a U.S. ski team. It's got a lot of great benefits to it. A wonderful community, as you know. Team Summit is here. And I can't say enough about how much I love my own home mountain, and yours as well, even though you've been to mountains all over the world. What is it that mountains need to know about if they're going to provide competitive environments for their kids? I know there's been a debate routinely about the board and ski cross having a course, whether we should have one up permanently. I'm sure the same discussion goes on with the mogul track, you know, and any number of different things. But at the same time as we say that, the parks are here. We let the public have availability to metal beams sticking out of snow.
Right.
Why is it we can't have a world-class, fist-based structure for moguls, ski cross, and pipe, whatever it is, so that if we're going to be the home of the U.S. ski team training center, why we don't also train the clubs that way? I know this is a big question that's debated by a lot of people, so I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you're a coach. You know what good facilities do for the benefit of the training.
Yeah, and I think that it's a real balancing act for the ski areas, because they're having to provide the best product that they possibly can to the public, and then be able to provide the best training facilities that they can for U.S. ski team, for Team Summit, for whatever it might be. I'm kind of dodging that question a little bit, because you know there's really a lot that goes into running a ski area in terms of snowmaking, in terms of lift availability, and to be able to balance that between providing a great product for the public, which, you know, like you said, like terrain parks, all that stuff, but that, you know, that is accessible to the public, whereas you can't really build like a mogul course and then just let everybody have
liability tends to rise.
Liability tends to rise, and it's not like you can have such a great speed venue that they have here at Copper, the U.S. ski team, and it's not like you can let certain people do it.
Yeah, no, exactly.
That just can't happen, and I think that it's a real, like I said, it's a real balancing act for somebody like Copper to work not only with U.S. ski team but with Team Summit to be able to provide. You know, because you know, all of a sudden you're having to close down trails, you're having to close down terrain to be able to provide stuff for the local clubs and everything, and particularly with Team Summit, I think that they have almost 500 athletes in all their programs now, which is a lot.
Yes, sir.
And they're training not only at Copper Mountain, but they're at Breckenridge, Keystone, A Basin also.
Well, and here's the environment piece we brought up. You know, we no excuses, no regrets, right?
Right.
So we got kids that come from Telluride up here to train. Well, why is that? Because there's no snow.
Right.
Their environment has been challenged. Now that's not an excuse, because those young people are coming up here to friends of theirs that they see on the circuit, the regional as well as the World Cup circuit, and say, hey, I want to hang with good competitors.
Right.
Well, how can I do that? Well, I can't see them at competitions because I'm not getting up there. I can't train and be the best I can be. So there's a lot of different components that go into this. So my next question for you then, related to that, is where does the corporate money sit as far as its allocation and prioritization? Because I don't see them putting money into training. Like they could supplement a Copper Mountain maintenance staff in moving snow, packing snow, structuring the structure, because that's the labor. That's why the villages and the hills don't want to really promote it too quickly, because that takes away from their labor pool to do that, to break down or put up fences so the public can't get at it. That's a cost.
Right.
And they're going to have to adjust and adapt as they get more competitions. So I'm wondering, where's the corporate money in its prioritization? That's, again, kind of hypothetical. You and I can just spitball it back and forth.
Are you talking about the corporate money from Copper Mountain?
No, well, like Jeep, for example. Jeep sponsors Copper. Jeep also sponsors U.S. Ski Team. If their money, that pool of money comes in.
Landover sponsors U.S. Ski Team.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm about a year behind.
Right.
Because I saw her commercial just last night.
Right.
Yeah, it was a beautiful commercial, by the way. But Land Rover, so Land Rover's money.
Right.
Are we asking them to allocate those dollars into physical plant development in the training places, especially when U.S. Ski is already here? They have a 98-year lease here.
Right. Well, I think particularly with Copper Mountain, they made. I'm not sure if it was U.S. Ski Team that helped pay for all the infrastructure of the speed venue here.
It was a shared, as I understand, it was a shared deal.
Yeah. So I'm sure that was somewhat of a shared deal. But when you think about like a sponsor like Land Rover, somebody like that, they're not only helping to pay for venues, but they're paying for athlete travel, for athlete funding, for everything that goes on at the Center of Excellence in Park City. Like there's a lot of different entities that are pulling out of those funds, and I don't think that it's not a specific thing that it can be like, well, okay, we're signing this deal with the U.S. Ski Team. We're going to take all this money and put it into the venue. Copper.
Yeah.
With Copper, they've got. There's a lot going on at this mountain. By the time.
Very exciting.
And especially early season.
Yeah.
The biggest challenges for almost any discipline, almost any sport, is November training. Because for the most part, you're gonna. A lot of teams are going to either go to the Southern Hemisphere in the summer. They're going to come back here in late October, whatever. Like a lot of the mogul skiers go to train in Zermatt, Switzerland, in late September, October.
But our regional kids are up at Steamboat on the water.
Right. But a lot of those regional kids are going to those places too, like Switzerland.
Nice.
They're going out. this is a year-round, full-on thing.
No, and it's not, and I don't mean to raise my eyes like I didn't expect that, because in basketball, baseball, you have the same thing going on. You got baseball players from here in the wintertime are going to Florida at IMG's facility and having elite coaching in all three of the major sports. So it's not extraordinary.
No, but with this sport, you have to chase the snow.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you absolutely do. It's not like you can go to the gym and it's going to be the same gym.
Yeah.
And everything else, and particularly this year with as warm as the fall was and everything, Copper had some huge challenges.
Oh gosh, yeah.
With snowmaking, and Mother Nature had a lot to say with how the training went. But for them to maintain the venues that they do, alpine venues, freestyle venues, and then their half-pipe venue here, that's a huge commitment. I really have to commend Copper.
Well, and
for stepping up
and Summit County in general, Copper is the gem on top of the crown, and as far as I'm concerned, in the last 5 years, about what they've done, the commitment they've made. And so I didn't bring up the question to really poke at them so much as to understand, yeah, there's demands of the dollars from a Land Rover or from whomever that brings money into the program. It's just a matter of, are they allocating it to priorities? Travel, you mentioned, of athletes. Training, to me, is a big deal, being a coach myself, as well as yourself being a coach. The training commitment of the dollars isn't just the mountain's responsibility,
No.
especially when you've got the U.S. ski team's long-term lease here and their commitment to maintain the program. So bridging from that question into the coach's focus, if you don't have it, you're just dealing with what you got. What are some of the foundational components that coaches need to rely on to make sure they're moving their athletes up the scale?
Well, I think that a lot of times you really have to be able to think on the fly.
Literally.
No, seriously. Like if you don't have a full venue and you don't have everything that you would desire to want at that point, you have to be creative in the kind of training that you're designing for each athlete. You have to make sure that it's like, okay, we can't do this because we don't necessarily have everything we want, but we're still going to get something out of our training, and we're in the big picture of it. We're gonna design that training for the hour, day, week, month, year. Yeah. Based on that, but like I said, we had a really warm fall here. We weren't able to make a lot of snow, so you adjust that. Like for us, not being able to have a mogul arena as early as we wanted, or as much mogul training as we wanted, and then you take a step back and you really try to improve your technical skills on the flats. And you really try to make sure you take the time that you need to be able for all those athletes to be able to have those skills.
You already probably know this, but I'll tell our audience, you mentioned flats, so I had athletes coming back to me, Coach, can you help me? Can you talk to my coach about the flats? Can we do something more exciting? It's so boring. I said, but it is training. There's number one, you are training. Number two, you and your brain are the key components on what you do with that training that you are currently calling boring. Right. And not very challenging. So I said, so one of my key athletes, which you know, I said, close your eyes. What do you mean, Coach? What do you mean? I said, close your eyes. When you're going down the hill, the flats, close your eyes and listen to your pole. Listen to it hit the snow. Listen to when your skis adjust when you're making little turns. Now, first of all, tell your coach you're going to do this, that you're going to close your eyes. I'm a big on sensory deprivation training. Right. Remove the senses to improve the others. And so all of a sudden, she's now, a few weeks after that, she got on the snow. We had some snow, got some moguls built, and they were starting to work on, tips into the mogul, then slide, the different techniques they hadn't trained before. And she said she was quicker at adapting because of that, taking that. But that's your point. Deal with what you got. Be a critical thinker, be a creative thinker, and be consistent in the thinking.
Right, and especially in that, like, you can come and tell me you're bored as soon as you can do every one of those skills perfectly.
Yeah, exactly.
If you've mastered every single one of those skills, okay, yeah, you can be bored. But if you're not doing everything that I can ask of you, and do it to a very, very elite level, you still have stuff to work on.
Yeah, fear of failure cripples people.
Right.
Yeah, and they'll use it as an excuse to not master something they're very capable of mastering.
Right, and I know that, like, that you're quote mogul skiers, but we're skiers.
Yeah, oh gosh, yeah.
I think a lot of times people pigeonhole into, like, oh, I'm an alpine racer, I'm a snowboarder, I'm this or I'm that, but we're all mountain sport enthusiasts. Well, and I think that I get a lot of joy being able to watch somebody like Michaela Schifrin or somebody make a great turn. Like we ski GS turns and everything, and I have a lot of respect for people that can do that at a high level, even though it's not the sport I coach and the sport that I love.
Well, but you make a really good point about athleticism, and that regardless of the sport, I have used that to my benefit with, let's say, an auto racer, for example. I said, what do you like to do when you're not in the car? Well, I like to play golf. Oh, okay. What about golf could you bring into the car? The same thing I've said to a mogul skier. I said, do you have any friends of yours that are downhillers? And what do you like about what they do? Oh, they go so fast. Right. And I said, what about their turns? oh yeah, they have to, and the terrain. I said, what could you learn about what they do on a turn for your turns? Because your turns happen fast.
Right.
Theirs are not, they're fast too, but they're slower than your turns.
Right.
I said, oh gosh, I never thought about that. I said, well, that's athleticism. That's you being a world-class athlete, which means you can ski anywhere.
Right.
And I really love that about so tell me then, do you feel that coaches need to know more about that, about coaching the athlete versus the specialty of the sport?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of everything, because I think that a lot of times we get caught up in, it's like, okay, we're gonna go ski moguls, we're gonna do this just every day, and I think that it needs to be split up a little bit more. Because I think that, all these kids, they're not all gonna be elite mogul skiers. They're not all going to the Olympics and everything else. And I think that everybody should be able to get something out of the sport. Whether, on a powder day, you should go ski powder.
Yeah.
You should, because it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever it might be. If your friends are alpine skiers, you should go be ripping around on the mountain with them.
I fall on purpose on powder days. I love powder.
Because I think that, we're all specialists in whatever sport that we do, but there's a lot of other things that you can bring from other parts of the sport to your sport. There's a lot of enjoyment out there, and I think that, we get caught up in our little bubble of okay, we have this and this and this that we're gonna do with a mogul ski or whatever it might be, but I think a lot can be gained by taking a breath, get outside of that, go ski some trees, go ski some other things, because those are going to help your skills as a mogul.
So are you also saying coaches are not perhaps making enough time to commune with each other and talk about, okay, what are you doing with your kids, so that they hear different approaches to a turn, different approaches to managing the environment. I've got kids I've talked to that their biggest psychological obstacle is the weather changes. If the weather changes, I'm going to drop down into some zone, and it's hard to come out. So are coaches talking enough amongst each other to gain new insights and perspectives?
Well, I think that probably within each program that goes on. I think that there probably could be more
crosstalk.
Or crosstalk between teams and between regional coaches, national level coaches, all that stuff. I think that no matter how long you've been in this business, you can always learn something.
I know that, I don't know if you remember this, but Shaun White, when the last Olympics he was in, he won a gold medal, and at the end of his run, and he had to make this run, he had to score the points. At the bottom, his dad and mom were down at the bottom of the pipe, and one of the first times on camera that Shaun went to his dad, because his dad wasn't at the events much. There wasn't exactly the best of relationships between the two of them. And he went down to his dad and emotionally gave him a hug, and and then after the fact, and I had talked to his coach, and I said, okay, give me some of the backstory on this. And basically it was the realization that Shaun was an athlete, and that his dad had been harping on that for years and years and years, and that was the nature of some of their separation. And it wasn't until Shaun decided to go look at some big air competitions of friends that he had seen that he started getting a better perspective of his own positioning in the air.
Right.
And see it, because he had fallen a few times and had an ankle problem, and he got perspective. But it came to fruition with his dad. So it's not just about the specialization or the sport of functionality in that specialization. It's about just being an athlete and enjoying the snow and the ski and the board. That's a really good point about that.
And not only, other snow sports, but other sports. Period.
Yeah, exactly.
You watch what went on, and I'm a huge sports fan and everything. And, being a Denver Bronco fan, I wasn't necessarily a huge Tom Brady fan for a lot of years or whatever.
Gee, I can't imagine why.
Right, but that was amazing what went on at the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah.
That was like that was really, really incredible, moving stuff. That it's like, they came out, they were the underdogs, but they came in and they took care of business.
Well, and one of the guys on the team, Shaq Barrett, I go back with him to Colorado State days,
wow.
and he came over as a transfer from a football program in Nebraska that the school shut down. So he didn't lose a year of eligibility for the transfer. So I was part of the recruiting team that helped him feel good about Colorado State. So I've stuck with Shaq for a long time. So his transition to San Francisco was one thing, and then when Rady shows up, it's in his second season with Tampa Bay, and Shaq had already had a premier year the year before,
Right.
bringing Tampa Bay onto the scene, right?
And just with the fact that he had been with the Broncos,
Oh, yeah.
with Von Miller.
Oh yeah.
And seeing the very, very highest level when they went to when they won the Super Bowl. I don't know Shaq was Broncos at that point.
Oh yeah. He was number 50. He was an under 50, Super Bowl 50 winner. So when he's getting to the twilight of his career, right? At least in some measuring sticks. So I had asked him after the fact. I said, "So what's it like when reporters ask you that you had a replacement offensive tackle that you had to compete against? That help you out?" And he goes, "No, I'm still as fast as I ever was."
That's right.
It's mindset. It's just a mindset. And playing the sport and having fun with the sport. Let me just take a check on the time. Oh, good. We're good. We're still good. Gosh, Scott,
but I think just going back to the point we're making,
Yeah.
that athletes and parents and coaches, they can draw from there's a lot of different, and it's not even necessarily from other sports figures too. But I mean, there's a lot of great stuff and a lot of great stuff out there, and I think that people can draw a lot of inspiration and learn a lot from those kind of people to apply to their own situation.
As you say that, and we're getting close to the close of the show, and you're going to go back to the Hill and watch the girls, do their thing today, and I hope that when you think about it, share with me when you think about that going out to the Hill and watching the competition today. What is it you want to have kids take away from today's discussion about competition? And that comment I made at the beginning of the show about no excuses, no regrets. You're in control of this. It's your vision of what you want to do on that run in that moment, and taking all that training you've gathered and putting it into that one place. What's a takeaway you want to give kids and coaches that are listening and will listen to the show after today?
Well, I think my main takeaway is every time that you're in a competitive situation or even in a training situation, you come out of that day learning something that you're going to be able to apply it to the next time out, and then even if you're in a really intense high level whatever, that you're having fun doing, that you have passion for. Because if you don't have you're not enjoying what you're doing and you don't have a passion for it,
Yeah,
you're probably not going to get out of it what you want.
I like that.
Like you might have set a really high goal for yourself that if you're not enjoying, I'm sure you hear it all the time. It's all about the
Yeah.
it truly is, because it's not like you can snap your fingers and go, I'm a great skier, I'm a great snowboarder, I'm a great whatever. It's all part of the process, and you have to be invested in that process. And if the people around you are invested in that process too, your parents, your coaches, whatever it might be, it can be an amazing ride.
Yeah, I'm glad you ended that way, Scott, because that's a great. I use the word process a lot. Journey is also a good word for it. We oftentimes, as coaches and advisors, we talk about the moments, staying in the moment, and that's one step of an elongated process or journey that you're in. We've talked today with Scott Rawls. I'm so proud and pleased to be introduced to you, and thank you so much for participating today. I hope we'll stay connected. I could talk to you for hours about the journey. It's been really good. Things are coming up. I'm sure Scott and I will talk about the Olympics coming up in the future and what may bring to his journeys. But today is one moment in our journey. We've got a great competition going on with Rocky Mountain Freestyle Moguls for it's the women's competition today. I'm got my fingers crossed for one good skier in particular for today. I hope she makes podium and does what she can do best. I want to thank KUHSdenver.com. We're streaming worldwide, doing some great things across the globe in what we do. So thanks again to Scott Rawls. Have a great day today.